everyone. I've been talking about how I do all of my traditional ink illustrations, or the vast majority of them, at 11 inches by 17 inches. But when I go to scan them to then do my digital coloring pass, I'm actually using a 9 by 12, 9 inches by 12 inches flatbed scanner, so that I scan the piece in smaller pieces and then merge everything together. This video is going to be showing that basic process. Here I have this demon illustration that I just finished up. I always have it taped down onto a wooden board to make it easier to work with. And I have my scanner sitting beside me. So the first procedure will be remove all the masking tape. And now we have the artwork separated from the board. This is again, 11 inch by 17 inch, 100 pound smooth surface, a Strathmore Bristol pad that I use. Typically I use a Crow Quill pen using super black ink. Now I want to scan this into the computer, and I'm going to be using this particular Epson scanner. Clearly, the artwork is a lot larger. I could scan it into two pieces and then just have them butt up against each other. But I actually prefer going ahead, scan them in three pieces, and then merge them separately. Have the pieces overlap. So if there's any imperfections in any one of those pieces, I can actually easily remove them and make it a much cleaner looking scan. So the way we do that is make sure the drawing surface, or make sure the scanning surface is actually pretty clean. There have been times I've done this by putting a book down to make sure it's evenly weighted. One issue about scanning artwork of this size, when it goes over the edge of the scanner is actually slightly raised. So I want to make it as flat as possible sitting on the glass surface. So what I will do is push this into basically doing it in three vertical pieces like that. I'll push the artwork as far into the corner as I possibly can get it, so it's nice and flush with the bottom of the scanner here. And I also want to make sure, though, that this edge, which is coming up just a little bit, I'm going to be pushing it down as much as I can. So I will set my scanning software to go ahead and scan that, and then push, because fortunately this takes a moment, so I have enough time to get in position. I'll push down evenly on both sides. You can see that green line going through the artwork as it's scanning. I don't want to move around too much while I'm doing this. Like I said, sometimes I'll put down a book instead, but I find generally I have a steady enough hand that I can do this. I can apply enough pressure far enough away. I also have fairly large hands, so it's a little bit easier. If you have smaller hands, you may want to end up putting a book on there to make sure it has even pressure on both sides. Now comes the tricky part. I want to do the middle section, and so I have to make sure that I'm pushing down evenly on both of these edges so that it's pushing as flat as possible against the glass. Again, pushing it up against this raised edge here on the bottom as evenly as I can, so I don't have to worry about twisting the image too much in Photoshop when I load up the three pieces. One side pretty much where I want it. Put down pressure on this side of the scanner, and then tell the software to scan. Takes a second for it to start working, so I have enough time so that I can actually put down pressure with my right hand as well. And now you can see it started scanning. See that green line traveling through the artwork again. All right. And then we do the last section. So just like with the first scan, I'll push it not only as tight up against the bottom of the this edge here on the scanner as I can, but also have it flush with the right-hand side. So hopefully this is a good square corner. Down pressure on the left side here to try to make it as flat and as flush with the glass as possible. And then turn on the software, tell it to scan, and then put pressure on the right hand side as well as I wait for it to scan. It's not perfect, that's why I want to do it in 3 overlapping sections, because there might be a little bit of the scan on either side. Either the left side or the right side where it came up a little bit, and this way I can, but if I have overlapping scans, I have a lot more information to be able to quickly fix and adjust the artwork so it's as close to the original look as possible. Now we are done with the scanner. This makes this process a whole lot cheaper, because this scanner, when I picked it up a few years ago, was probably in the neighborhood of about $100 Canadian. Whereas a flatbed scanner that you could do something at this size, you're looking closer to $1,000, depending on deals and such. But I find this method works really well for me. Doesn't take that long to do the initial scanning, and then once you get a good workflow for assembling the pieces, it doesn't take all that much time either.
Now that the 3 scans have been made, and it's actually an 8.5 by 11 inch scan, and the settings for that scanner, by the way, were grayscale and 1200 dpi. You can see now that I have the 3 scans, I've opened them up in Photoshop, and I can quickly take a look at the file sizes, or the actual dimensions. Each one of these images, 8.5 by 11 or 11.699 inches at 1200 dpi. Now comes the part where I assemble all 3 of them into a single large file. I'm going to be assembling it as is. It's basically going to be an 11 inch by 17 inch file at 1200 dpi. So, start with this first piece. I'm going to, in Photoshop, do image rotation 90 degrees clockwise. Set that aside for now. The next piece is the middle piece. Do the same thing. So I want them all having the same orientation. And finally, the top piece is this particular file. You can see that it is a grayscale file. I'm going to make this the base for the whole image. So in order to create the 11 inch by 17 inch file, I am going to, first off, I'm going to make sure that my foreground and background color are both white, so that when I expand the image, everything that gets expanded will be white. I'll show you what that means. So right now you can see on my color sliders that it's both the foreground and background are white. If I was to change it there, if I was to expand it with the background being black, when I expand the image, everything in that new space will be black, and I don't want that. I want it to be white. So right now, the background being white, go to my canvas size tool. I want to anchor this in the top so that when it expands below the image. And then under height, I'm going to make it larger. I was giving myself a lot of extra room, because then I can crop it down smaller later. So right now it's currently 8.5 inches high. I'm going to change that to 20 inches. And you can see now that when it expanded below, all that is white. So I talk about using channels quite a bit. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be in other painting programs, but for this particular procedure of assembling these 3 scans into a single large image, for me, channels tends to work the best. So I'm going to create a new channel. Under channels, hit the little plus sign and double click on it just to make sure that the color is going to be something other than black, so I can see how the 2 channels overlap. I actually tend to use a red for this. There's no particular reason why it matters. Just something other than black. Turn the eyeball back on the gray channel so you can see the original black and white line art. But I'm actually on the Alpha 1 channel because that's where I'm going to be pasting the next piece of this. Go to my middle scan, Control A, Control C. So I have copied that whole thing. And then back on my original file, I hit paste. You can see now I have this red overlapping artwork. Control D to remove the selection. And using the move tool, I'm going to move that down so it lines up to where those 2 images overlap. Zoom in really close so I can get it as close as possible. Because when I scanned it, I made sure that that one consistent edge on the scan, on the original page, was pushed flush against the bottom of the scanner. I really shouldn't need to rotate either any of these additional pages. It can be, though, if you've scanned it a little bit sloppy and it's a little bit off, then you'll have to use the free transform tool to twist it a bit to get it to line up. But in general, if you're pushing it up against the bottom there, you shouldn't have to worry about rotating too much. And you can see here that I can get this to line up pretty well. And I'll do this in the basically the middle, anything in the middle here, where the scans have overlapped. Now, this will get a bit fuzzier towards the edge. You can see that the scans don't quite overlap properly, or they don't quite line up properly at the bottom here. That's okay. That's because of the paper interacting with the side of the scanner, and it actually lifts up a little bit. We're going to be getting rid of that. The way we get rid of that is, now that I've got it overlapped, so I've got this strip in the middle, I am going to now be removing the excess scan, the excess portion of the second scan that I don't need. The parts of the scan that I want to remove will be in the portion where it's overlapping with the original scan. So where it's really, really dark red, I know in there, all the bulk of the information is all being duplicated. I basically want to remove some of the second scan and some of the first scan so that the 2 parts will overlap properly and line up and look really clean. Probably just easier if I demonstrate how I do this. In my previous video about the lighting effects, I talked about using the quick mask tool to help making selections. That's actually something I'm going to be doing here. In that video where I was making selections, I was using the lasso tool. Here, however, I'm going to be using the gradient tool to create a selection. So I hit Q to create the quick mask channel. Now nothing has appeared there because there is no selection. In order to make this selection, I want to make it a little bit fuzzy. I'm going to use the gradient tool. So hit G and make sure I am using the linear gradient tool. So it's not expanding from a central point. It's actually moving basically a long line that just fades out. And I have my foreground color being black. I will start the gradient tool up around her horns in this dark red area and drag it down to the upper part of her shoulders. Basically, I want to make sure the entirety of this selection is within this dark red section. So you can see now we have this green that fades out. This green is a selection. One other thing I'll point out when I make this selection, Let's undo that for a second. I put down the stylus somewhere here at the top, again around the horns, and hold down the shift button so that when I drag it down, it is a perfect vertical selection. So it doesn't go off center at all. Now, once I have this fuzzy green selection made, hit Q again, turns off the quick mask, and now you can see there is this marquee thing going on. I've actually made a selection. It looks like it's selected a square, but it hasn't. It's actually a faded out square. Both my gray and alpha 1 channels have been selected. I don't want that. Basically want to use this as an area that I can paint white in for both channels. So if I click now directly on the alpha 1 channel, now I can only see my second scan. The original scan has gone away. I'm going to fill this selection with white. Now I just have the button on my stylus set to fill. And when I hit fill, it actually fades that out. It doesn't just put in a harsh line, but instead it creates this fuzzy white area. If I go to the gray channel, I want it filling in with white as well, but I want to fill everything below that line with white because that's going to be replaced with the information on that second channel. So I've gone to the gray channel. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I to inverse the selection. It basically will select everything on the canvas that wasn't the original selection. And you can see that the marquee tool, that Times Square marquee looking thing, moved to the bottom of the image. And now, if I make white my foreground color and fill, it fills white below the line art, basically where the other line art was on that alpha 1 channel. And if I click the alpha 1 channel on now, you can see that now it's a cleaner image. The two of them more or less overlap. So I'm going to turn off the alpha 1 channel, deselect everything, and then load the alpha 1 channel as a selection. So either select the alpha 1 channel and drag it to that little dotted circle. You can see it's created a selection, or I just hit Control and tap on the alpha 1 channel. It does the same thing. Set my foreground color as black. I'm sitting on the gray channel, and I'll fill with black. And now on the gray channel, I have all the information from the original scan and the information from the second scan. There is a slight lighter, almost like a haloed section where the two scans had overlapped. That's okay. Later on, we're going to be darkening all of this, and all that will work out just fine. Now that I got that finished, I'm going to do the same thing with the third scan. So go back to my alpha 1 channel, fill it with white. I don't need that information anymore. Click the eyeball on the gray channel so I can make sure everything lines up properly. Take a look at, I no longer need my middle scan, so I'll just close that. I don't need to save it. And go to my third scan, Control-A, Control-C. So I've now copied it. Go back to the original file. I'm now on the alpha 1 channel, and I'll hit paste. This looks exactly the same way that the previous one did. Control-D, use the move tool to get it to line up approximately. Again, I'm looking at the middle of the scan. So that's pretty close already. Now, depending on the kind of project you're working on, you might want to make sure it's super, super accurate. If mine's a little bit off, I'm okay with that. This is at such a high resolution, even if I'm off by a pixel or two, in the final version, it'll look just fine. It'll look pretty much the same as the original line art. Okay, so I've got this dark red band of artwork and a lighter red band below that. Just like before, I want to remove information from both the gray channel and the alpha 1 channel. And I'm going to do that by hitting Q So I have my quick mask again. Use my gradient tool, make sure the foreground is set to black. Drag from somewhere in the upper quarter of the image, so just below her shoulders. Drag the gradient tool down to about where her hips start. And I've now got that green selection. Q to turn off that selection. Now to turn off that channel, now I just have it load up as a selection. Whenever you're working with multiple channels and you use the quick mask tool and you go back to it, Photoshop tends to select all the channels simultaneously. If I do something right now, it'll action all the channels at the same time. I don't want that. I only want to be affecting at first the alpha 1 channel and then the gray channel. So I go to my alpha 1, just click on it. Now it's the only thing I see. Fill with white. Go back to the gray channel. Hit Shift Control I to inverse my selections. Now I'm selecting everything that I wasn't selecting before. Change my foreground color to white and fill. And now you can see that there really isn't a red band of artwork there anymore. Load up the alpha 1 channel as a selection. While I'm on the gray channel, I will make sure that the black is my foreground color and fill. And now I have all of the 3 scans on a single file. I no longer need that 3rd scan. I don't need to save that. So now the artwork is, the canvas is a lot bigger than what I need. And this is a little bit fuzzier than what I particularly want. Actually, let's get rid of the information in that alpha 1 channel. So I just have this artwork. Well, I want to crop this, and there are a couple different ways you can do it. You can use the cropping tool, or you can make a selection and then hit crop, and it'll do the same thing. I tend to prefer making a selection using the marquee tools. So in this case, I just want to select the live line art. And then I'm going to be putting in a black border around it. But you might want to leave all of the information outside your original border in your inked file. However you want to do this, that's fine. I'm just going to be demonstrating how I end up doing this part because I want a nice clean edge on the outside of my line art. I'm going to zoom in on the bottom, in this case, bottom left-hand corner, where you can see the exterior lines defining the space I was inking in. Selecting M, in the bottom left-hand corner here, I'm going to be using it to basically create a giant square, well, giant rectangle. As close to the edge as I can. Drag it to the upper right. And now that I have that large selection, I will, under the edit, under the edit tab there, I'm going to select, under the image tab there, I'm going to select crop. And that immediately crops the canvas down to just that particular selection. I want to double check. And yeah, this happens quite often where my original, the original square I made wasn't perfectly square, or it hadn't been scanned perfectly square. It's a little bit off. You can see where the bottom border has crept up a little bit. That's okay. I'm just going to do that procedure again, only this time starting in the bottom right-hand corner. So selecting my marquee tool, and then go to the upper left hand just to see if everything lines up. And this scan turned out pretty well, so I'll take it right to the very edge. And then again, hit crop. And now we don't have that outside line anymore. We now have a grayscale image with 2 weaker bands of artwork, two grayer bands of artwork, roughly in defining the top third and the bottom third. I want to make it all very sharp. I want to make it all very even all the way through. I could do this live on the gray channel, but I actually prefer working on a separate channel to tinker with the artwork to make sure everything looks good. So I'm going to go to my Alpha 1 channel, which I've currently made white. I'm actually going to fill it with black. This is when you're extracting line art from the gray channel, you end up having to think backwards. But I'm going to fill the whole background with black, change my foreground to white, and then load up the gray channel as a selection. So just like I did before, I could either drag the gray channel into that little circular icon there, or I can just hit Control and tap on it. It actually creates the inverse. The selection creates is the inverse of the black line art. Fill with white, and now I have my line art on the Alpha 1 channel as well as on the gray channel. Because here, if I tinker with it and I decide I didn't like what I did, I still have my original line art. With this image, I had only inked with black ink. I didn't do any inking with white ink. If I had done any inking with white ink, which I frequently do, I'll actually go in and clean up that a little bit more. As good as the Dr. P.H. Martin's white ink is, it can create more of a gray tone or blotchy white and black patterns than pure white. And so sometimes for the scan, I'll go in and make sure it's super clean using the dodge tool. But for this one, I had done everything just with black and white. I had done everything just with black ink. For the most part, it should be fine. Although I can take a quick look just to see if there had been any stray pencil lines that had been picked up. My original pencils, when I put them down before I ink, I do with a 2H Staedtler pencil, and I have a very light hand when I'm doing that portion. So in general, that doesn't really scan very well, but it's not a bad idea wherever you have a large field of white. Just take a quick look, and I can see there are some stray lines on her forehead. If I hit O, this will actually give me the dodge tool, so I can actually clean out a little bit of that. Now this actually shows how gray the background image is, how gray the paper actually is, because it's creating these fields of these sections of a brighter white. That's okay. We're going to be making that even cleaner. But yeah, where I see a few extra lines around that I can clean out, I can quickly hit that. There may also have been debris on the scanner bed that I may want to get rid of. Now you can be super obsessive about this, or you can treat it like, well, if I have a few extra lines in there, that'll add a little bit of extra character to the inks. It all depends on the style that you're wanting to go for. For the most part, though, because when I use the levels tool, I'm actually going to be leveling the entire image a little bit lighter. It's actually going to get rid of a lot of that already. I'm just looking for anything that stands out as being particularly dark. But because I didn't do any white ink, there really isn't too much of a problem anywhere. Nothing's jumping out at me. Yeah, I think I'll just leave that as it is. Using the levels tool, I can now adjust the value, the white and the black of the entire image at the same time. It's Control L to call up the levels menu. If I drag this slider from the right-hand side towards the left, it actually brightens everything. I can go super bright and blow out the entire image really quickly. I don't want to do that. I want to just move it a little bit so it brightens the entire image just a touch. I don't want it to remove any line art that I want, but I do want it to remove that background gray and any additional gray pencil lines. So it's best to do this in smaller stages rather than all at once. So I've done it a little bit. I hit OK. You can see all the line art. All the line art in this has gotten a little bit grayer. That's all right. We're going to be using the levels tool to make it all darker again. Then take a quick look where I had noticed stray pencil lines earlier, and they're almost all gone. I can now focus where there's a little bit extra gray. Remove that quickly by hand. There really isn't much of anything jumping out at me as being wrong. Another advantage of doing this at 1200 DPI is I have a lot of room for interpretation. I have a lot of room to clean up all that line art. Call up my levels tool again, and this time I'm going to drag the slider from the left-hand side over to the right to darken everything. And again, do this in stages. Don't do it all at once. So in this case, I'm going up to about a third, where most of the line art starts turning much, much darker. Take another quick look to see if anything, if there are any stray lines that I don't want that are starting to appear because I'm making everything darker. But no, for the most part, everything's looking fine. Go to my levels tool again. You could also use curves for this. I find for myself, my procedure, levels works just fine. Again, make it a little bit lighter. So now I'm at the stage where I want to have the left slider and the right slider on the levels tool meet. So I make a harsh black and white image. And I can basically just move them both into the center, hit OK, and now let's look at the edges of the line art. Now the edges of the line art are super sharp. I go in super dark, or super, super close. Yeah, you can see this stair-step pattern. That's fine. That's at a ridiculously zoomed in setting. But now we have really, really sharp black and white line art. And that's what I want. Could you have scanned this in bitmap mode to get that sharp line art right away? Yes, but the line art would basically explode if you did that. Because if you scan it in bitmap, if the line art is super black, it will scan as black. If it is anything other than super black, it will scan as white. So all the lines will actually just be patterns of black and white. They won't be a super dark, rich line. That's basically my procedure for taking an 11 by 17 inch piece of artwork, scanning it on an 8.5 by 11 scanner to be able to have the original 11 by 17 artwork. So thanks very much for watching this particular video, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.